First of all, thank you for having me. As somebody who is outside of the industry, certainly interesting to sort of, why me, right? Why would I be here? And I'm come from an advertising background, and it's always funny to hear somebody else read your bio because you sort of think to yourself, okay, interesting. And what you could realize about advertising is that I get to learn a lot about everything, although one could credibly argue I really know nothing about anything. So I preface all of today with a real sort of humbleness and opportunity to learn and really learn about what you do. And it's something that I have a great admiration for, and I think you guys are all really lucky to be able to do what you do. So what we're going to talk about is really using technology to market books. Thank you. Using technology to market books. And what you can expect from today is really just a quick step back into just remembering what we're selling. So as in advertising and in marketing, we always try to step back and just try to really coalesce around what we're saying and what we're selling, because oftentimes we get really caught up in marketing buzzwords and even technologies, right? We could have a whole lengthy conversation about technologies and data and forget actually what we're trying to do. We're going to talk about the killer app that I personally believe has changed everything. We're going to talk about redefining the path to purchase and using data really to redefine that process. We're talking about retail and through the eyes of a retailer, what's happening at retail, and then finally what this is telling us about the future. And I have two ideas actually that are for marketing books and things that may be something that you guys can take advantage of. So I mentioned why me, and one of the things that is important to know about me is that I'm an incredibly avid reader. I have been since I was a kid. I've read on every device. I've read on my phone, I've read on an iPad, and I have stacks and stacks of print books. And I think actually for all of us, it's important to say what we like to read, right? Why are we here? These are my top five books that I love. Now, very varied, happy to talk about any of them. Some of you may think some of them are terrible. All fine. But when I talk to people and meet new people, I love to hear what they like to read. I think it's a real indicator of who we are as people. And when I talk about you guys being lucky, it really, stories, right, are ultimately what make us human. This is a cave painting from Somalia that dates back to 9000 BC. And cave paintings were stories, right, that were etched on walls, and they were just so that people didn't forget the important points. And so when they would tell stories orally, they would use the cave paintings, and then they would enhance them with song and dance and music, not unlike exactly where we are today. We have the opportunity, we have printed words, whether they're digitally delivered or on a print piece of paper, and we have the opportunity to enhance that story using technology. That's the headline. Stories are what make us human. And so when we talk about what we're doing and what we're marketing, it's really about communicating with one another, right? Because stories are how we define who we are and how we learn. Talked about change at the very top. I'm not going to talk about change, but I actually think it's important to just put aside the premise that we love to declare the death of everything. We do. There's something very human in being able to say that thing is dead. You can see the Wired cover from March of last year, the web is dead. Oh, well, good. I'm sure there is going to be a next, the e-reader is dead, right? The reality is all we are facing and the only constant is change. It's simply a fact. And our main objective is not to become a boiled frog. Frogs, many of you know if you've cooked them, hopefully not, but if you have, frogs, if you put them in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, they will never jump. If you put a frog in hot water, it will jump and save its own life. That is so true to who we are as people, because small incremental changes can happen underneath us, and all of a sudden, everything's changed around us. Don't let that happen. Don't be a boiled frog. Push. So that can be the one takeaway from my speech, by the way. Don't be a boiled frog. And all of the change that happens around us, it's important to remember the universal truth that sits underneath everything. We all want to be loved. Now, some people could say that's so silly or that's fluffy and marketing-ish, but if you look around at the tables of the people that you're sitting with, when we're talking about consumers and segments and all of these things, if we lose sight of the fact that all we want as human beings is to be loved, we have lost. This is the fundamental truth of who we are as people. And in fact, what people want is authenticity, right? We all want something to happen around us that feels real, that feels true. And we're herd animals, right? So what we're looking for are the opportunities to connect with other people. So when we talk about technology, we talk about smartphones and the importance of Facebook, it's about connecting. That's all it is, right? Because that is who we are as people. That is how we define ourselves, right? In the stories that we share with people. So I preface all of the conversation about location and data and technology with just a quick step back into who we are. So let's talk about why location matters. We got a little bit of different data, but smartphones dominate. Actually, who in this room carries a smartphone? Yep, pretty much all of you. About 30% of Canadians own a smartphone is the data I have. About a 50% increase from last year, and people are spending 17 hours on that phone. In the US, it's about 50%, some say about 54% is the smartphone market. So that domination is here. That's not gonna change, right? Now what will change is how those devices work, what applications are on those devices, but smartphones dominate. The question of will they or won't they, not here anymore. But the killer app for smartphones, and for all of us in this room to think about, is GPS. GPS is something that we all take for granted. And when I started to build this presentation, I started doing a big dive into what is GPS, right? I just pull up Google Maps like everybody else and it tells me where I'm going. I've never really thought about what is that? How does that work? It's actually 24 satellites that were launched by the US Department of Defense. First one was launched in 1974. It's 24. They can triangulate around any location in the globe, looking at through any weather. And basically what happened was they began launching these satellites, and the last one was launched in 1994. And in the 80s, the Department of Defense decommissioned it so it was available for civilian use. The reason why you didn't really see anything until 2000 that leveraged GPS is because the Department of Defense would oftentimes degrade the signal just because they wanted to make sure they could, right? So the application was really spotty. In 2000, they stopped doing that, and what you saw was the rise of completely reliable GPS. GPS is fascinating, right? Every single person in this room that has a smartphone, you're pinging the satellite. It knows where you are. Now, that can be a little scary, right? There's a little big brother-ish thing, and in fact, Apple's gotten in trouble for that, for tracking using the iPhone as a tracking device. Retailers today are installing systems in their store that can tell where you go in their store, what shelf you stop at, how long you linger, what you go right by. So GPS is actually an absolute game changer for all of us, just in our daily lives, putting marketing aside for a second. And we're sort of at location 1.0, the very early days of the connected shopper. And all of these applications, I could have put up 100, right? And you're gonna hear about some of them today. You'll hear about many of them in your daily lives. All of these applications are available and people are using at various levels. And all of the clients, I work for a shopper marketing agency and that we focus on hyperlocal. Our clients are primarily retailers. All of them are trying to figure out, how do I use these? Do these matter? Which ones matter? There seems like there's a lot. Do I invest in all of them? They all have different components, but the core underpinning of each of them is location and connection to others. Those are the most powerful ones. So as we think about the importance of location, we think about the importance of communicating with people, there are many, many applications that are really driving that. And at its core, what it's allowing us to do is what we call mass localization. And I think I sort of promised at the beginning not to use marketing buzzwords, and I apologize because this is completely a marketing buzzword. Really? Is that English? Not sure. But mass localization. You think about the rise of the daily deal, right? Groupon goes public in the US and billions of dollars later. It's about being able to deliver you a locally based deal based on where you are at scale. Now, one can argue, and you wouldn't be wrong, to say that Groupon is really all about delivering you 70,000 yoga studio offers, right? Really, how many do you need, honestly? And half off sushi, I'm good, thanks. So there is an evolutionary process that needs to happen with the model. We're not there yet, but they can deliver offers at scale. That's the headline, right? How it evolves is going to be really important. And by the way, really important for Groupon and all of the companies that are following behind them. But where that gets paid off is from your phone. So when you do a check-in at a location and you do a check-in off your Groupon, you close the loop, right? You did go to that yoga studio and you checked in. That's the closed loop as we talk about location-based marketing. We have an ecosystem, and the ecosystem actually throws off data, which we can then use to refine the loop. Now, very important to note, location-based marketing is not just Groupon or Foursquare or places on Facebook. This is a really easy mistake that we can all make, is just to think about it simply as I tell you where I am and you tell me something about what is around me. It's much, much more than that. And for those of you that have iPhones, or this is actually very similar on an Android, if you go into your location-based services, every time you add an app, it asks you, this app would like to use your location. Is that okay? Now, I'm not exactly sure why some of these apps need my location. Pretty sure most of them don't, by the way. But if you look through, what you see here is all your applications list, and you can say which of them you want to give your location to. This is location marketing, everything. Your camera, Facebook, Flickster, this is my movie app, right? They all are using your location in order to serve you up information that is relevant to what is around you. Because when you are at a place, for example, you're all sitting here, it defines what you're doing. It defines what you're thinking about and how you're feeling. Now is not the time you want a yoga studio half-off offer, right? Completely irrelevant to where you are right now. That actually can be determined by where you are, what your location is. And so as we talk about the next generation, I talked about location 1.0, right? 1 million applications that are trying to understand where you are and serve you offers and Groupon. It's really about location plus data. And really being able to use what is happening is going to absolutely be game-changing. And what we talk about is the shopper journey, which is really capturing behavior across time, space, and place. This cannot be overstated. This cannot be oversimplified, because being able to capture this data, but more importantly, act on it, right? There is no shortage of data anywhere. You guys are all sitting on huge treasure troves of data, even if it's in your own behavior. But the important thing is to understand, what do I act on and what do I ignore? Critically, critically important. I want to talk for a second about shoppers. I actually get this all the time. I actually got this from my boss, ironically enough, when I started working on shopper marketing. He said, well, everybody's a shopper. I don't understand. How do I think about what is shopper? Shopper is everything. It touches everybody, so it can't possibly be a discipline or a thought process in and of itself. So everybody uses toothpaste, hopefully. Although I will tell you that there's 2% of the US population that does not own a toothbrush. Let's just hope they are the very young and the very old. But of the 98% of people who brush their teeth, who use toothpaste, everyone consumes toothpaste. So if you're Crest, you have a consumer segmentation, lots of stuff about how people think about their teeth, what they do. When you run out of toothpaste, you become a shopper. It's no more difficult or no more complicated than that. And so when you're thinking about marketing books, at some level, everyone is a reader, right? We all read now. What we read, how we read, That will be different in the segmentation. But at the end of the day, when I'm looking for something new to read, I become a shopper. That's the way to start thinking about the differentiation of behavior. And as we talk about the path to purchase, right, another favorite marketing buzzword, favorite way to sort of identify what happens, we become aware, and then we consider and we talk to people. Using data completely changes that path to purchase. And in fact, what has become incredibly sort of poignant is that our view of the funnel in marketing anything, right, and selling anything, whether it's books or cars, our view of the funnel, you sort of start at the top and you move through this very ordered and considered process, wrong. It doesn't actually happen that way. It'd be nice if it did, but if you step back and look at the data, what you realize is it's a very circular process. You start to think about something, you start to want to buy something, then you consider it if it's a big purchase. And in many cases, some of the things that we're realizing, we actually did a study that I would actually recommend you guys read because I think it's very, very interesting and it's a super fast read. You can read it on the plane or on the drive home. It's a study that Google commissioned called ZMOT, Z-M-O-T. Download it right off Google. And ZMOT was really a study about the zero moment of truth. So P&G has spent hundreds of millions, billions probably, of dollars in marketing around what they call the first moment of truth. And that really is the moment that you are standing 3 feet in front of the shelf of whatever you're going to buy, of any product. And ZMOT actually proved that what happens when people start to consider products is that they Google. Shocking, right, that the Google study proved that out, but it did. People Google, they talk to friends, they look at online content, they read reviews, even for products that you would not think. So of course we've known that for automobiles forever. Of course, driving a car, what do you think? Do you like that car? How does it drive? But it's true of aspirin. People read reviews for every single thing. And the data proves that out again and again and again. And we could have a discussion, and before the study, I would have argued against it. I would have said, look, I don't want a relationship with Tylenol. I know what it does. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. But I don't need to read a lot of reviews about it. It's actually not how people are actually working. People are really looking into and digging into the products and services in which they buy. As people consume things on the go, that changes the message, right? It changes the way, what we can deliver to them and where. Think back to the cave paintings, right? We now have the opportunity to communicate with other content, other sort of exciting things through a device. It doesn't have to be that we read on the device, but what is it that fills that experience, that rounds that experience out, that you can access on the device? And the most successful marketing that's happening today leverages data. Now, that seems really obvious, but I will tell you, having been in marketing for 20 plus years, we talk a lot about it, and the reality is where it actually gets executed, one could argue it's only just starting to happen because there's too much. There's too much data. It's hard to know what to act on. So let's talk really quickly about what's happening through the eyes of the retailer. I know there are some retailers in the room, but certainly we're all people that go to retailers, and we're people that are trying to sell products through retailers. Clearly, we are in an absolute battleground, sort of battle royale, right? Historically, if you think 5 years ago, the biggest problem Amazon had was that people were researching online and then going to a store, right? It would annoy them extraordinarily because it would annoy marketers and manufacturers. I make this product, build all this content, and then you go into a store. Now, what has happened is the reverse. And this is called showrooming. And this has happened throughout the holiday season. And Target actually just recently published a study where they're trying to figure out how they do not become a showroom for Amazon. Now, this is Price Check. I grabbed this off online a couple weeks ago, and I had to put a white box over the search thing here because if I were to uncover it, it says screw local businesses. Thought maybe I could get away with not putting that exactly in the presentation. But very simply, for those of you who have the app, have seen the app, if you don't have it, I would really recommend you get it because you need to understand what's happening. You basically use your camera, you scan a barcode, and it tells you if it's cheaper on Amazon. That's it. And you can order it as soon as you see it. You can literally order it from the store. And this was a Pew Holiday study in the US. 52% of adults use their phone for a shopping-related behavior during the holiday season. Of those people, 25% search for a cheaper price, and 35% in the very good news section of this still purchased it at that store. They were standing in front of it. But 65% didn't. Holy crap. If you're a retailer and you've spent all this money to merchandise and create this great store experience, and somebody walks in your store, they touch the item, they like the way it feels, and they literally order it on their phone so that 2 days later it will arrive free shipping from Amazon, $20 cheaper, that's a loss. Now, I told you that the battle royale is happening on both sides, because certainly Amazon's been a victim of that, and all online retailers have been a victim of that. So on both sides of the digital divide, there's push, right? This is a really important trend. This is some more data from eMarketer. If you look at this, the numbers only go up as you look younger, right? You look at Gen Y, Gen X, those numbers get exponentially larger. And in fact, if you look at all of the different types of activities that you can do, that all of the different things that you can talk about when you're in a store, call someone, Lifeline, I guess, text, these are all directly related to what people are doing. And so what does a traditional retailer do? To combat showrooming, the solutions are really falling in 3 different buckets. And they are related to bundling, loyalty, and services. Bundling for me, I always use the example, I moved to Chicago about a year ago from San Francisco. And in Chicago, it might come as a surprise, but there can be gigantic temperature fluctuations. It can be 70 in the morning and 30 at night. And right around the fall, right, it's sort of towards the end of summer, everyone in Chicago buys mums and puts them on their front porch. It's the weirdest thing. I kind of love it, but it feels very Chicago to me. Multiple colors of mums. And that is a signal, right, for me, that I thought, okay, I should go, first of all, should buy mums. I'm in a new neighborhood. I don't want to be the neighbor without the flowers on my porch. A little sketchy over there. And it made me think, it's almost time for winter. I should probably get a new snow shovel. And I probably need some of that ice stuff that my dog won't hurt his little feet in. Bundling. Now, traditional data would not, sort of common sense would not tell you mums, snow shovel, ice pellets, right? But a retailer can use the data that they have and bundle in a way that is much, much harder online. Because the way the categories work, the way the pricing works, merchandising can take advantage of bundling in new and different ways. Loyalty is the second. So today, in grocery, most people have about 4 different loyalty cards for grocery stores. And it's primarily a price-driven opportunity. Retailers are trying to think differently about loyalty. They're trying to think differently about how do you understand what you buy. There's an application you guys should check out only because it's different and very different than your field, but relevant. And it's called foodflex.com. And Foodflex is an application that was developed by Safeway. And what it is the nutritional profile of everything you buy for your family. So when you swipe your card, they basically aggregate over any time period the calories, the fat, the nutritional value of everything you bought. So that when we all sit around and say like, I don't know why I gained weight. Oh, the double stuffed Oreos appear to be a problem. It allows you to think about your own behavior. They're turning the data back to you and allowing you to use that data in order to make your life better. And in fact, one of the things we've been talking about with one of our grocery clients is the idea of turning the data inside out so that when you walk into a retail store, you buy about 300 products in your lifetime. That's it, which felt small when I heard the number. Grocery stores carry an average of 10,000 SKUs. That means there are 9,700 products you are never picking up. So my thought was, again, in the context of loyalty, what if you turned it around, used that data about people that are in your neighborhood, and said, what is the number one product that's being bought today? I'd be kind of interested. And you know what else I'd be interested in? What is the product nobody buys? That sort of olive tapenade jalapeno thing that's like in that weird little jar. That is the kind of data I'm talking about. That's the way we could turn it back to people and let us, right? We're just people, use that data. The last one to talk about in terms of combating showrooming is services. This is Best Buy's Geek Squad, right? This is the opportunity to have somebody service you in a retail environment. But it can go it's broader. In your categories, the best way to think about this is the opportunity to meet the authors, right? This is a service that you're providing. You're giving people the ability to get underneath what they already love. And I showed you my top 5 books. One of the things I was most excited about was the opportunity to meet Alice Sebold. I loved her book. I thought it was great. I wanted to hear what books she loved. That's a service, and that's something that we can connect with people on in order to broaden or deepen the experience. Retailers think about their stores in 3 ways. They think about it from the store first, right? So if you think about the last 3 feet, you broaden out to 10 yards, so that's really the parking lot. And then finally, it's 14 miles. That's the trade radius from every store. So whether you're Best Buy or Barnes & Noble, they think about a trade radius of 14 miles. And so when we talk about developing marketing programs that are location-based, we can actually look at zip code data, mobile data, and market specifically to people that are within 14 miles. That's all we're trying to do. And so it allows us to step back from the reams of data, every zip code. If you think about in Canada, thinking about all the provinces, all the different segments, and it gets so complicated. But if you think about it from the context of just one location, it actually simplifies what we need to do and allows us to prioritize what are the best things to do. Some of our clients are thinking about apps. Certainly can't avoid the app today. These are 2. And I put them up here importantly because they're limited. One is very successful, one is having more limited success, but the opportunity is great. As I talk about location, the first one you look at, right, is Starbucks. I use this all the time. I'm super guilty of it, right? I was in Midway Airport in Chicago, and I pulled it up to see, like, is there a Starbucks in Midway? Huge and valuable direction, right? Super fast. I don't have to do a big search. I don't want to go on Google Maps. I just want to know, is there one right next to me? Because that would be great. Now, Walgreens is trying to do the same thing, but they have a problem where people use it once and never come back. So the problem of engagement becomes very, very critically important. Because if you only use it once, it's just a matter of time before you delete it. And for those of you that have smartphones, I would guess the average number of apps you have on your phone is probably between 15 and 20. And many of you will go far, far above that, which means there is a lot of stuff you never, ever, ever look at. So for all of us, when we're talking about apps, what we have to do, our main objective is to do advertising so good that it's perceived as a service. That's what Starbucks is. It's advertising so good it's perceived as a service. Walgreens, not yet there. Quick and very short point on privacy, because I know I saw some head nods when I was talking about location-based marketing. Interesting statistics around how people feel about being tracked. Sort of at our gut, right? Kind of makes you a little queasy. Honestly, it makes me a little queasy. I'm not sure I want everybody in the world knowing what I'm doing, or pretty sure I want to publish back out. But when you look at what people are worried about, and again, this is a US data point, but it's pretty small from a shopping standpoint. And the reality is, if you can give me something that's valuable to me, I'm willing to give you the data. Now, I don't want Groupon to send me yoga studio offers ad nauseum based on each location I am in the city. I want something that's relevant to me. But if you can deliver it, you can have the data. So as you'll see, the sort of group that people are most worried about is the government. Shocking. That was a big surprise. But shopping sites, and when we talk about shopping, we talk about sort of being able to connect with things you care about, yeah, I'll give you the data. But make sure you give me something back that matters. So what does this all mean for you? At the end of the day, everybody here either wants to sell books, have people buy more books, right? That's ultimately why you guys are here. All the conversation about data, I think it was set up so perfectly at the beginning. How do we get better? What do we do that's different? I have to go back and reset, because I think we can lose sight of this very easily. We all want to be loved, right? We all want to be told and feel important. So I have 2 ideas. These could be terrible ideas. I'll totally caveat that. But I will give them to you. You can take them for what you paid for them. The first is book crossing. For those of you, has anybody in this room seen Book Crossing? Couple? Great. Book Crossing is amazing. It's small, but it's amazing. What it is a site where you go on and register your books. You can print off a custom code. You can design it so that the label looks like something. And when you read your book, it has a code on it, and you leave it somewhere. If you pick up that book and you open it up and you see that first page and you go to the site, it tells you to enter in the code. And you go to the site, it tells you the history of that book. And you can sort of release your books to the world. Because as we talked about at the very beginning, stories are best when they're shared with other people. And so what if the opportunity was to use Book Crossing, which has about 1 million users, so it's still very relatively small. But you took 25 authors and you released very limited quantities of their book, and you released them to the world and let people read them and pass them and share them and talk about them, right? And let that be the engine that drives discovery, right? I know you'll be talking, there's a lot of people today talking about discovery, and I ended up shifting away from that a little bit, but it is the essence of what you have to do. If Barnes & Noble or Borders goes away, Borders was literally an opportunity to discover. That's all it was. I actually grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I went to high school with Josh Borders. It was a local bookstore. It was where we all went as kids. Of course, it became the conglomerate, and then obviously is now just empty signs on big empty storefronts. But it's about discovery. It's about walking those tables. It's about seeing where people are congregating. It's about watching somebody else pick up a book. Discovery. So think about using technology in order to drive discovery in new ways. So think about Book Crossing. I would recommend, I'd go and register for it today. I think it's one of the coolest things that's happening. The second is using a technology called Layar. And Layar is spelled L-A-Y-A-R, annoyingly. So I always misspell it when I do things. Layar is a technology that is an augmented reality browser. That sounds super techy and complicated. It's not. All it is the ability to use your phone's camera and hold it up on anything, and it brings in additional content. So in Chicago, we are very, very proud of our architecture, right? People always talk about the boat tour, the architectural boat tour in Chicago, which, by the way, if you get a chance to go, do. It's awesome. Layar, Chicago, actually built an architectural layer where you can drive down Michigan Avenue or Wacker and hold up your phone, and it tells you about the buildings. Who designed them, when they were built, what they were used for, what the architect was thinking. And think about the process of reading a great book. You're going through that, you're experiencing it, you're feeling like you're connecting with these characters. And what if you're in the location where that book is set, and you're able to drive around and see where those characters went? And literally use your phone and augmented reality in order to sort of plus up the story. So if we go back to my cave painting analogy, we're adding the music, we're adding the dance, we're using technology to add, not take away or kill the print book. The technology enables us to wrap, and that's the way we should be thinking about it. As we talked at the outset, it is critically important to mine your data. And when I say mine the data, it makes it sound incredibly complicated. It doesn't mean you have to have millions of records. As one of our databases, we have 30,000 records of shopper behavior. That data tells us what we need to know. So mine your data. And as the next chapter, as I get ready to walk off the stage, you guys get ready to hear a lot of presentations from different people. There's really 6 things to take away. Stories are what make us human. And we have to treat them with great care, whether we're marketing them, whether we're publishing them, whether we're discovering them. We can't lose sight, and you guys can't lose sight of how lucky you are to work in an industry that is directly connected to who we are as human beings. It would be much, much harder to sell toothpaste, I promise. GPS is an absolute killer app. It is going to change the face of everything that we do. And everybody remembers the Tom Cruise movie where he walks by the sign and it reads his pupil and gives him a message. Yes, and, right? It's not really that. It's really about where we are at any moment in time determines how we're feeling, how we're thinking. What's around us tells us a lot. So GPS can enable us to connect with people in very different ways. Location plus data is the key. And so that's the next generation of applications. That's the next generation that will become smarter and will actually deliver you things that you actually want. Retailers are fighting a very fierce battle on both sides of the equation, whether you're an online retailer or a bricks and mortar retailer, or in most cases, you're both, right? If you're Target, you're actually an online retailer as well. So it's not fair to just point to Amazon and say, look at them. Almost everybody is crossing both. And the interesting place is if Amazon ever pushes into bricks and mortar, right? Think about that as being a game changer. And information and technology cannot be siloed from what you do. Your data tells an incredibly intricate story. And the opportunity is really to tease out what is that narrative and make guesses, right? Don't look for the perfect answer. Make the hypotheses and act, because action is what will avoid the boiled frog syndrome. My favorite quote was from Bill Bernbach, and he talked about good doesn't drive out evil, evil doesn't drive out good, but energy always displaces passivity. It is important to just do something. It's important not to sit and become a boiled frog. So with that, I will turn it over to any questions or the next set of the agenda.